Oh, innocence.
Welcome everybody to this seminar. We are today welcoming Tialda Haartsen from University of Groningen. She is a professor of rural geography. And she is going to talk today about internal migration of young people, I think, within the Netherlands. So I'll just hand over to you, Tialda. I'll just share your slides first of all, and then pass you the laptop. There we go.
Great. Please. Hello. Welcome.
Hi, Joe.
Great, sitting on your bike.
Yeah.
Liz might have to look a bit early, so we'll have a little shuffle. That's it.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Also, good morning, people online. Oh, I don't see you. I see some pictures, but I hope you will be able to hear me. So, as said, I'm Tialda Haartsen. I work at the University of Groningen in the north of the Netherlands, here on the map, very far away from Amsterdam, only 2.5 hours by train, so it's not so far at all, actually. And I work at the Faculty of Spatial Sciences, and this is our building. So I thought, okay, let's try to introduce myself and our organization a little bit before we start going into the presentation. But I will try to keep it short because the presentation is more interesting, I think. And then I push enter.
Probably just the right arrow down, I think. Down arrow?
Down, all right, works.
Because this is
Nothing
PDF.
works.
This is a web page.
Okay. It's a PDF.
But it says here device control something. It gives a message here. Should I do something with that?
Maybe you should just keep it with and then
Yeah.
you can indicate
Yeah.
once you need to.
I probably couldn't do it myself, but just get rid of it, huh?
Next slide, please. So about our faculty, we have a faculty motto. It's called "Making Places Better Together." And we are a group of geographers, planners, and demographers that are in there together. And we have a lot of topics that I will not discuss here, but because there are similar topics also, I think, to a lot of things that you are working on. Our faculty is already there since 1948. We have approximately 120 staff, also 120 or a bit more sometimes, PhDs, and 1,100 students in 2 bachelor's programs, Geography and Planning, and Spatial Planning and Design programs. And we have 7 master's programs, Economic Geography, Environmental and Infrastructure Planning, Population Studies, Real Estate Studies, Society, Sustainability and Planning, so the social side of planning, and this is the Environmental and Infrastructure side of planning, and the Research Master in Spatial Sciences with a specialization in islands and sustainability studies. So that was interesting and also links nicely to this afternoon's PC defense that maybe not everyone is aware of, but at least it's going on. So we have 4 departments.
Oh no,
A bit too early.
Yeah.
So we have 4 departments. 2 geography ones, these are the green ones, so cultural geography and economic geography, and we have a department of demography and planning, and I'm head of department of cultural geography, but we collaborate a lot with economic geographers, and now you can go to the next slide. And now it's not working anymore. Yeah, it's coming. And so we teach in economic geography a master's program, but last year we launched a specialization in this master's program called Sustainable Rural Futures, to focus also a bit more on rural areas and rural communities. And so there are some rural specific modules within the economic geography regular master's program if you want to do a specialization on rural areas. Our economic geography program focuses a lot on regional aspects, so not so much on urban economic geography, much more on the regional economic geography, labor market stuff and so on. And this track, Sustainable Rural Futures track, Salomik is also involved in that. And because we think there's a big a rising interest in rural issues, and we think we also should reflect that in our educational programs. And there's hardly any master's or no master's programs on the kind of geography and planning side of rural. We have Wageningen University, but they are traditionally kind of an agricultural university. So this is why we launched it, and this is in development. So we will see how it evolves in time. Next slide, please. So topics that economic and cultural geographers, because we collaborate a lot together, are researching, are focusing on these kind of things. So it's regional labor markets and entrepreneurship, regional development and housing. That's much more economic geographers. There's also a lot of perceptions of rural mobility and also the mobility itself, of course, and accessibility, valuation and perceptions of green spaces and all kind of historical landscapes elements, social impact assessment, facility services, quality of life, citizen initiative, and spatial injustice and inequalities. And there's again the social spatial disparities and also this discontent. Next slide. Because there's quite, I thought I was going to the next slide, but this one is first. So there's quite a lot of, especially in the cultural geography department, interest in these place identities, place attachments, and so on, and how that relates to all kind of spatial developments and spatial behavior of people. So we very much are into that. This is an example of the PhD thesis by Suzanne Christiaanse. She did a project on the loss of rural facilities, and she also paid quite a lot of attention on how these perceptions of loss are, influencing the place meanings and how that influences how you deal with the loss. So that's one of the core topics in our cultural geography research. And one of the things that's really a big thing at the moment in the Netherlands is, of course, that we had these 2023 provincial elections where this new political party, BBB, this Farmer Citizen Movement, one who had a big win of the elections, but there were a lot of protests with tractors in The Hague and everywhere, but also with these upside down flags, farmers protesting against the nitrogen plants and all kind of other things. And a lot of people were discontent anyway, apparently, with the government. So they all voted for her, this woman, who was very happy with the winning the elections. And since then, there's so much talk and discussion, especially also in the media, about the divide between rural and urban areas. And that's a big thing. And even only if you say the word the divide, then everyone knows it's about rural against urban, or at least that's how it is also very much stressed in the media, because of course it's much less big a divide than they say, but they make it very big. But research things like this one, this is a survey about place-based resentment. And the question was, it is about the extent to which people believe that national politics pays insufficient attention to their region. And there's a really interesting, both rural-urban, but also core-periphery divide, or at least differences in it. Because this one is the Randstad region population living in urban, semi-urban or rural areas. This one is the kind of in-between area, urban, semi-urban and rural. And these are the more peripheral regions, urban, semi-urban and rural inhabitants. And you can see that in all cases, the rural people are less, they feel that they are not represented in the national policies. But you also see that the average levels are getting lower as if you move from the core to the periphery. So it's a very complex mix of rural-urban things going on, but also core periphery things. And it's all mixed up. And if you try to explain this discontent, there's quite an interesting things going on. A committee of smart people kind of produced a report also in 2023, and it translates every region matters, or should matter, it actually means. And they also proved that there is big differences and increased differences in the Netherlands in between core and periphery, and between urban and rural regions. And since this report was presented, all, especially rural and peripheral regions, go to The Hague with this report saying, hello, we need more money, or we need more attention, or you need to pay more attention in our policies and so on, or you need to do rural proofing, or you need to do regional proofing, or etc., etc. So there's big discussions going on at the moment, also in all kinds of levels of governments, how to include, because they want to do something with it, because they were a bit shocked by the elections. And also after that we had a national election, and we will have national elections again, because it's a bit messy in the Netherlands in the political system. because it's quite a lot of populist votes as well, and they want to pay attention to this and to actually do something about the discontent. And I think this is the setting in which we now do our research. And interestingly enough, now everyone jumps on the rural, also the academics. So now you have this discontent, well, at least I feel it personally, that the scientists in the western part of the Netherlands, so in the Randstad, who always focused on urban, now all of a sudden are jumping into the rural topic, and they research things that we already did 20 years ago, and they're not interested in what we did. So I'm feeling a bit of a discontent myself as well, to be honest. But this is the setting that we are in. So now let's go to the presentation, because that's where everyone is coming from. So I'm going to present the first paper of the PhD of the Tineke Reitsma, so that's where she is. She started her PhD last year in March, so a bit more than 1 year now. And her project is called Welcome Back, and it's about what rural areas can do to re-attract young adult leavers. And so there are different kind of things, elements in that. One thing she will do, and that's what I will present, is she started with a sort of quantitative analysis of who actually leaves, how many leavers are there different types of leavers. So can we look at long-term migration patterns or trajectories of rural young adults, and how does this work? She will then, after that, or also already in the meantime, is working on developing a database on initiatives that rural municipalities take to try to stay connected to the leavers or to re-attract them to rural areas. So she's working on that. And then she will do some more qualitative research on those who they try to stay in touch with and how that happens and all kind of other stuff. So I will present her first paper. And we've already got, so as you can see, there is a project website of this PhD project, also called Welcome Back. There's also in the news thing here, and it's not empty anymore, because at the start of the project, there were already so many media interested in how is this going on. So we were actually being filmed for the regional television something, and I'm wearing the same clothes, I just realized. But anyway, it was so that was very nice. So there's a big interest in this project. Next slide, please. But it started with a PhD project by Eva Mesk. She's from Denmark, but we had a co-to-tell, some kind of connection together project. So she's from Esbjerg and University of Southern Denmark, and she did her thesis there and back again, and it was she defended it in 2022. And one of the chapters in that thesis is about, because it is about motives and immobility of young adults and why they leave or not leave and so on. And one of the chapters is actually about this initiative, return initiative of the municipality of Ringkøbing, I don't know how to pronounce, Skjern, something in Jutland. And it's called Club Exile West-Jyder, so Exile West Jutland, I think, yeah. I would say. And they have this whole initiative, they already have it running for a couple of years, that they every time young person leaves, they get out of the administrative system of the municipality, they invite, so they give them a survey, why are you leaving, etc., so they learn why they leave, and they try to get them, to invite them to become member of this club, and to do all kind of events. They do all kind of different activities, so they have a Facebook and an Instagram and I don't know what, about informing them about jobs, about houses that are for sale, and they have organized reunions in the region for those who left to come back and to meet each other. But they also organize meetings in, for example, Copenhagen, where quite a big concentration is about this Ringkøbing, Skjern drinks and eating hot dogs or something, I don't know, so that they meet each other from their home municipality. So they try to stay connected, and they try to then hopefully, if people are in a later life force stage, thinking, oh, we actually need to buy a house, and then if they see, oh, actually in my home municipality, there are also nice houses for sale, maybe I can actually consider to go back instead of look somewhere else. So they try to kind of tease the leavers and update them with all kind of information that they were not interested in when they left, but they might become interested in after it. So that's where it started. So one of her chapters is about that, and we thought we can do more with this. So we try to interest governments in the Netherlands to invest in the species project, and it worked. And then we could go into that a bit more in this. And this is where Tineke comes in. So, and this is the first project is about, we used microdata from the Dutch Statistics Agency, and we selected the cohorts of 1984 to 1987, and so we started actually with people that are 35 or older, and we selected the cohort that was born here, because this microdata started in 1984, so we couldn't go back further in time. So we have 3 years, 3 cohorts that we can analyze from when they were born until 35 to see how their migration trajectories turned. So then we made the decision to focus on those who have lived at least 4 years in a rural municipality at the age of 11 to 16, sort of kind of formative period. Then we looked at the whole period of 17 to 35, where they would go and what they did. So we did that for the 4 North Netherlands provinces. They are also the funders, and also the Ministry of Internal Affairs is funding the project. And leaving is defined as moving to another municipality. So that's the definition of leaving. So, next slide. So, first we had to see, okay, how many leavers do we have and how many stayers do we have? So that's where we started. And apparently, of these cohorts that we researched, there were only 33% of stayers. There were 33% of stayers, and 67% of leavers. So that was the first thing. Then we looked at what's the first destination where they go to, and you see that 30% of the leavers goes to, 28.9, I have to say, go to another rural area, rural municipality. And quite a lot go to an urban area. And the average age of leaving is 2022, and the average distance is 49 kilometers. And now you can go to the next. That's okay, no problem.
So what age do people go to university in the Netherlands then?
You can use 18, 19.
Okay, so that's almost post, because I thought that would be a big, you go away to university, but that's sort of implying it maybe later. Okay.
Yeah, there's more, but I will come back to it.
Okay. Yeah. That's it's older than I.
Yeah. But it's all, it's not only university, it's all different types of leaders. So we will see it later.
Okay.
So, from all these people, in this whole, it's 41,000 something or so in the sample. And for each year of all these people in the age from 17 to 35, we assign them into 5 possible states where they are in. So the places where they are. So you either stayed in the home municipality, then you'd be pink. You moved to a new municipality, then you'd be green. You moved to a subsequent municipality, so a follow-up move, it would be orange. You return to the home region, it would be blue. Or you left the home region after you returned again. So these are all states, and every year, so this is person 1, so he or she first stayed in the area where she grew up, then moved to the first new municipality, and then returned. And the second person did a similar thing, and then left again. So returned, but left again. And these are, and then you can now go to the next. So, for 41,000 persons, it looks like this. So this is age 17, this is age 35, and here, so you see, it starts early with the university grad people leaving, but the leaving, so these are the stayers. This is only the leavers, right? So we don't have the stayers in this one, of course, because there's nothing in to measure. Exactly. So in the end, they all left at 35, but it continues, until later ages. If you go to the next slide, because you can also have a kind of simplified version of that messy thing that we just saw, and that looks like this. So then you can see how this evolves in time. So the bigger thing that becomes bigger is moving to the first destination. So that's a green one. That makes sense, of course. If you leave, you first have to go to your first destination. And then already from 20 onwards, you can start seeing that some return already and stay returned, maybe. We don't know, because they can also move away again and return again. So we don't know exactly how this goes in here. And the orange one is onward moves. So you see this migration starts to, well, continue. So this is the total thing. That's nice, but, you know, okay. And then what? Next slide. So we thought, okay, we do a cluster analysis on these levers to see if there are different types of movers or moves or migrants. So this resulted in 5 clusters of levers. The return migrants, obviously, because we're interested in them. They are here, 11%. The repeat levers, so they, as you saw in the previous slide, they leave, they come back again, but it was a temporary coming back, and then they leave again. They're 10%. Then we have the late levers. We will come back later why they are called late levers, but they are a bit older, so there is already a bit of the clue. They are 13%, so it's quite a big group compared to the other ones. Then you have onward migrants, so they are 15%, so they are mobile. And then we have the one-time migrants, so they move to another place, and that's where they stay. 18% is also quite a lot. And then, of course, we have the stayers. They're there, the stable ones. Next. Then, and I'm aware that, but I had to present them all in one because you can nicely see the difference. But I'm aware it's a bit difficult to see maybe for some. So I gave at least big fonts on to see which is which group. So then you can have these sequence plots. It's called sequence analysis that we did. I think I forgot to say that. And then you can see the differences in their migration trajectories nicely presented here in the nice colors, I think. So the return migrants, so they move in the ages of, leave in the ages of like 18 to even kind of 26, 27. And then they started to come back from 22, 21, 22-ish, and then a bit more and when they're a bit at the end of the 20s. So that's kind of the summary, I would say. You see the repeat levers, they go more or less, well, a bit faster more often than the return migrants, but they also start leaving again. So that's clearly, they do that after they're 23, 22, something, and then it becomes bigger. The late leavers, they stay very long, as you can see. So they only start leaving at the end of the 20s, in the early 30s, and that's kind of it. And then we have the onward migrants. They start to do their second moves after finishing and finding a job probably, or finding a house. So 22, 23, they start doing their second and onward moves. And then we have the one-time migrants. Well, as I said, they are quite stable. There are some colors, it's a cluster analysis. So sometimes you have some, so they are most similar to the others in the cluster, but so sometimes they're not, it's not one-time migrants that never returned, or so there's a bit of a messy thing in the end often. But this is kind of the pattern. Interesting. I think it's so nice to see all these differences in these groups.
I have a question, but yeah. I'm sure you're going to cover it. So like the late leavers or even some of the returners, are they staying with their parents or are they getting their own houses?
Oh, that's actually a good question, because we didn't include where the houses, but I will come to it and we will keep it for the discussion, right?
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Okay, we have loads of descriptive tables, but I only have one here now because for time reasons. So one of the things that we looked at is, of course, well, how many percent are in? Well, I already showed you a bit of these figures. So the stayers are now rounded off in 34 somehow. And the return migrants in a total sample are 11.5. So for the rural home municipalities, from all people that are young adults, they keep kind of, 45-ish% or something. And the rest leaves. But some, especially the late leavers, they move to quite often to other rural areas. So they're not lost for the rural, they're only lost for the home municipality. Not lost, but you know what I mean. So if you look within the sample of leavers, 17.4% of the return migrants is still quite an interesting share. And you can also see that the biggest ones are the ones that are the onward migrants, so the mobile people, but also the one-time migrants. They only move once. Then we looked at where there's age at leaving, and then we have this old age again, relatively old age for the late leavers, and the rest is kind of 20, 21, something on average. Okay. Then we have 3 destination places, so the urbanity of the first destination. Well, I don't know why it's called urbanity, but that's how it's called. Urban versus rural. And then we have that for the farthest destination and also for the destination at age 35. So you see that first destination is quite a similar pattern for almost everyone. So between 70 and 18% or so moves to an urban area, an urban municipality, and something like 25 or 20% moves to a rural municipality. Except for the late leavers, they're much more also going to rural areas. So they might be stayers in the rural. And then I skip the farthest destination. The urbanity at age 35, do you know how far the new localities are? Yes, that's next. If you look at, of course, at the urbanity at destination of age, think that the return migrants are all back in the rural, more or less, but also the late leavers are in the rural. So that's quite relevant. And for the others, it's more or less 60 to 40%. So some of them also first moved to, for example, the repeat leavers. They moved to an urban area, and then some of them do end up in a rural area, but somewhere else. And so it's also for the others. So there's a bit more move towards rural areas, but not a home municipality at later age. Then we also have the distance from the home municipality, but you can go to the next slide, and then I can, because I have a nicer figure, I think. It's a bit, although it is in Dutch, so sorry for that, but I had to be efficient with my time to prepare this presentation. So this is the municipality where they grew up. This is the first destination. This is the farthest destination, and this is the final destination at age 35. And you can see that the different groups are presented here. So the onward migrants, they are the orange line. They are the top line. They move the furthest away already at the first destination, so at average a bit more than 60 kilometers from home. And they also, if they do their onward moves, they move a bit further away, and then in their 35 age, they move a bit back, but they're still 80 or so kilometers away from the home municipality on average. If we go to the yellow line, that's the repeat leavers, they are also quite, so they move, they come back again, they move again. They're also quite at a far distance, yeah. And then you see that for the return migrants, they are the blue one, they obviously return back to the home region. And they also don't go that far, like 50 or so kilometers. The one-time movers, they stay also fairly close, and also the late leavers, they are the both greenish ones, they stay relatively close to the home municipality. So they might actually leave to the next municipality, and it could even be the next village that accidentally is in the next municipality. That's administrative things. And that they move there because of housing reasons, or because they have a partner that's from that village or a bit further away. So they are actually maybe also not so much leavers, although they are administered as leavers. So that's what we thought was all very interesting information that you can get if you can take this every year perspective and really focus on these trajectories. I hope the question of someone online is now answered.
Someone, can we see the question?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to hear.
Put it in the chat.
So next slide, please. So we did some further analysis. So as I said, even more descriptive tables. I have them somewhere at the end of the presentation, but I will not present them now. We also did a multinomial regression analysis on the leaf clusters to see how all kind of socio-demographic background characteristics and so on influence and how they kind of, well, explain the different clusters. We took return migrants as reference category, and we have loads of tables with marginal effects and relative risk ratios and all that stuff. And I thought I will not do that, present that here, because it will be a bit of a statistical technical story. So I will now actually leave the tables for what they are and summarize the results in a bit qualitative way. Next slide. Yes, there is it. All right, return migrants. So I'll explain a bit more who the return migrants are. They are individuals whose partners did not grow up in the same municipality as their own. Oh no, sorry, this is wrong. So individuals with partners who did not grow up in the same municipality as their own are less likely to be returners. So, strong role of having a locally rooted partner in return migration. It's no surprise, I think, but it's good to know. It is irrespective of the partner originates from urban or rural municipalities. Associations with household composition are small but mixed. Single-parent households showing a slightly higher probability of return. That's often related to social networks that can help you being a single parent, I assume. We don't know that, of course, because we only have the quants. We don't have talks to the people yet. So women are have a bit higher likelihood in returning compared to men. Early age at first childbirth, well, early is already under 31 years nowadays, and fields of study such as agriculture and veterinary medicine are associated with higher probabilities of being in the return migration cluster. And higher education levels are also associated with increased returns. Yeah, so that's good. So this is return. Yes, so we have the repeat leavers here. So those who leave, come back again temporarily and leave again. So they don't have a partner from the home municipality. They are more likely to have higher levels of education as well, and they have study fields in personal services, arts, humanities, health and welfare. They are a bit younger age at first childbirth, and they also have a bit higher probability of single parenthood households in the repeat leavers. Next. The late leavers are a bit older at age of childhood, and they also have, well, we think it's related to the later family formation, and it is also, so they actually stayed in a municipality, and they found a partner from outside the municipality, and then they leave at 28, 19, 30, something, whatever. There are also a bit more partners without children, or still without children. That's, of course, you don't know. Education levels are, higher education levels are negatively associated with late leavers. So they are a bit less highly educated, and they are a bit more like the mathematics and national sciences and natural sciences and computer sciences ones. So that's why then we have the onward migrants. Ruth is really speeding me up. So they are strongly associated with having a partner from a different municipality. So the partner just, it makes a difference if you have there's a big role for partners actually in this, I think. Higher education is a big thing for these onward movers, and they are in all kind of different educations. Their household, this is very messy, mixed, everything else. So, but they are, I think, mostly onward movers because they have a partner from a different municipality and they have higher education, and maybe they are a bit mobile persons, could be. Then we have the one-time migrants. So they are similar to the onward migrants. So they have partners from outside the home municipality. They're also a bit higher educated, and they're a bit later in when they get children. And of course, it's nice to compare them to stayers because they are nice. they often have a partner from the same municipality. And they are often middle-educated graduates, and also in the fields of personal services and health and welfare services. Women are less likely to be stayers, and there's also higher stayer probabilities for those who already have a partner and already have children, or at least to be in this cluster. Yeah. So, concluding, I hope I'm still doing okay in time. There's no single type of the rural leaver and the rural returner. So this is actually a kind of a confirming that it's good to look at migration as a process instead of as a one-time event that we all try to preach to everyone, but no one listens sometimes. Well, we do listen to each other, of course. The rest of the world is not listening. So it's also interesting, I think, to see that not all leavers are permanently lost for the rural or for the home municipalities, but also not for the rural, because 17.4% of the leavers actually moved back to the rural hometown, so they would be returned to the rural home migrants. But for example, of the late leavers, they relocated short distance, so some of them are stayers in the rural, as I said before. Some of the onward migrants returned to the rural later in life, not necessarily home region, but to a rural area. That would be the return to the rural migrants, and they are also interesting for rural areas, maybe not for the home regions, but for other areas, and that's also fine. And most one-time migrants can be considered as stayers in a new and often urban destination. So this is one that we lose, a group. And the repeat leavers, they have a really messy migration trajectories. These are a bit difficult to grasp. But I think it's interesting to see how there's much more hope for the rural, and it's much less. If you only look at a one-time event, they leave at age something between 18 and 25. It looks as if you lose 60% or 66%, as we first presented. But if you go in depth and look where they are at age 35, then you actually see that there's much more to it, if you look at the migration trajectories. So I think this is really an interesting result from this paper. So having a partner from the municipality of origin is very important, or maybe also from a rural area. We can look at that, but from a rural area somewhere else could also increase your probability to return to the rural somewhere else. So that could also be interesting. Becoming parents is important, plays an important role in returning, and it's also clear, but this is not something new, but it is reconfirmed again, that university graduates are more mobile and that the middle-educated graduates are often one-time migrants or stayers. But our overall conclusion would be attracting young adult leavers back to their rural home region, because that's in the end what the project is about, requires a long-term perspective. So you have to target at potential returnees shortly after leaving, but also continuously during this process, because there will be all kind of life course events between 18 and 35 that might result in reconsidering where do I have to live. And then if you accidentally read that there is a nice position at the psychologist in your home region, you didn't know that they were actually having this there, because when you left at 18, you didn't think of job perspective. You thought, I'm going to the city and I'm going to live a dynamic life there. And then, a bit later you think, okay, I want to stabilize a bit more. And then you only start thinking about this, but maybe you're not thinking about your home region and as a potential place to go. All right, so targeting returnees during the process. That's the focus, or the conclusion. We also would like to further research, of course, the motives of our leavers, but not we know why they leave in the beginning, because there's quite a lot of research on that, but how these motives develop over time in these trajectories. We also want to know, because the partner is so important, where do they meet their partners? If we can do something, if we can, get something out of that. How do our study choices made? Maybe you can influence a little bit on focusing in secondary schools in rural areas to present a little bit more about the labor markets in rural areas, so that they choose educations that maybe also indirectly result in return, or at least moving to the rural. the roles of housing and housing markets in everything on this, but also the residential history of the parents that we did not include. We also did not look in housing, and that's where the question that who was asking about the parents. Yeah, we did. If they return to the parents, I expect based on previous papers that the repeat leavers that they go back temporarily to their parents because they chose an education that didn't work or something else, and then they will
regroup.
yeah, and they will live. But I think the rest is all independently living now. Yeah. Okay. Next slide. So I think we should maybe do something with partner markets. And there's something interesting going on in the Netherlands at the moment because of this rise of this rural identity and related to the winning of this farmer citizen movement and all kind of other extra interest in this. There's now an agri-matching dating app for rural people, but it's actually for agriculture, so for farmers' kids. You recognize it? Do you have it at your side?
Young farmers.
Yeah. So it's a dating app, and
It's for dating. It's not for land. That's
no,
what I was going to say.
No, it's for dating. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they
young farmers is kind of dating.
A lot of drinking.
yeah, but they also drinking. That's what they do here at the Farmers Rock Festival, which is also really specific for with specific farmers music. They have this tractor pulling stuff, and they have I don't know what they do, motocross, and I don't know.
We have similar kinds of things in rural Scotland.
Yeah, you did have
Discos in the village halls and things like that.
Yeah, but that's what we also did have. But this is really focusing on this agricultural identity thing.
Yeah,
it's really.
But I can see that it is different and it's aimed specifically at young people. But there's also that kind of there's that kind of side to some of the agricultural shows, some of the smaller ones, isn't there?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but. I think in the old days, and maybe also people from my age and older, they still think that you have to do it like that. So you have to create a disco or a place in the village or in somewhere where they can go to the disco. But they don't go to the disco anymore. They want to go to festivals. They want to go to stuff like this. They don't. They have a different way of going out and meeting each other. And so I think we should, if we want to focus on that and stimulate that they meet a partner from the rural or from and maybe the home region or at least a rural area, then we have to see how you can not we but policymakers or she was first.
Oh, thank you. I didn't mean to be.
No.
But I think I'm really interested in the attracting farmers to attract other farmers. But all the whole seminar was fascinating, and there's lots of questions there, Tialda. One interesting thing that maybe is for future research is where people, whether they own land already or whether they're a part of a farming business, and that brings them back, or they're able to, because in the research we understand in Scotland is that people are tied to their place, especially young men, but the women have to leave, but then they also don't want to go too far.
No.
And that restricts their abilities to set up new businesses, for instance, because they need the support network. Like they need the childcare or they need the job on the farm or something like this. So we have, all of these sort of social life that happens in rural places, but it doesn't facilitate moving to where land is
in the
available.
Netherlands, we only have 6% or something of the rural people is farmers. So it's not a lot. So that's why there's much less attention for that. Yeah. So that's also why I say these ones focus on the farmers, but it's only very. So I think we should have more things about rural. Yeah.
I thought that the first initiative about keeping people connected to their place was really innovative, and you can imagine those people getting together and forming connections, even if it's in the city or something, and then later they go.
You mean the Danish example from Denmark?
We might go home now and our granny can look after the kids.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not a question, it's just a reflection.
No.
But housing would be also fascinating to know more about. And again, in Scotland, we have a rural housing crisis and it's declared in various different local authorities. And we're seeing rural school closures that Mags knows a lot about. And it seems like housing is the critical hook.
The crisis is that there's too many houses, right? Or it's too few.
No, there's too few.
Way too few.
And they're too expensive.
And they're being taken out of the market because of tourism, for instance. It's more lucrative for people. So innovative ways to get housing, and again with land, there's lots of land is being made available without housing, which again restricts the young person to come and be part of that business.
Yeah.
But it really also differs between different types of rural places because, like as Annie said, tourism has a massive effect on housing prices, for example. But then there are those rural places which are completely undesirable.
Yeah.
There's no tourism there. And it would be interesting to know, well, I'm sure there's been research done in Scotland about kind of returning to those places versus the more kind of attractive, vibrant, pretty landscape, touristy places. Yeah.
There are some slides on the geography also in the bottom of the presentation that I could not present now, but that doesn't make a lot of sense for you if you don't know the area, and it would take me too much time to include that too. So, but there are some maps down that you will be able to see.
I'm just wondering, should we stop sharing the slides?
Yeah, that's fine.
So that you can see everybody on the screen as well?
That's fine.
I think we should also give priority to people who aren't having dinner with Tialda tonight to ask this question.
That's so rude. Lorna.
No, it's not, I've got loads to say, but I'll just bless nobody else.
Can I ask a question about, so obviously the partner element plays a huge role. Did you have a chance to look at whether it's gendered by any chance? So for example, if a woman from a rural area meets a man somewhere else, is she as likely to move for him as if a man from a rural area is likely to move for her, and whether there is any difference, whether it's a heterosexual couple, for example, because it seems so key. That, I mean, I have my assumptions as to, are the men as likely to move far away from their family for women, or women, I think, generally, and this is just sort of
it's a very interesting question.
Are expected to be a little bit more mobile because maybe their careers aren't as set, or they are, for whatever reasons, expected to be a little bit more flexible throughout their life. So, I was wondering whether, because you had said that you had a lot of quantitative data.
Yeah, we did not analyze this, but this is really an interesting one.
And especially, I guess.
Thanks.
Yeah, whether that, and I'm obviously supposed well beyond the project, but whether this differs based on countries, whether somewhere where gender equality is quite good, whether that decision making differs based on other countries where there maybe the roles are still quite traditionally enshrined.
Yeah, that's interesting because from this linked life, migration stuff, we do know that's often the females that follow the males, and also often in relation to the work careers of the men. But that's also hopefully a bit changing, but not too much yet. So, but it's very interesting. We didn't do that yet because this is a weird thing. We have to hand into the statistics office all the things we want to know, and then it takes a week for them to run the analysis, and then you get the results back, and then you think, oh, we forgot one thing, and then it takes another week. So at a certain stage you stop doing that, and always you think, oh, there's one more thing that would have been nice to ask. But it's because it's because it's individual data. So
how large are the municipalities?
Some are in number of inhabitants or in area.
Well, it would probably be both. I'm just trying to, because I think part of our problem in probably the UK as a whole is that local government units are much larger than they are in most European contexts. So we just wouldn't be able to do this type of analysis. Because I think Aberdeenshire is about a sixth of the Scottish landmass. So a local move would be within Aberdeenshire. Which you just don't get. You just don't get the detail that you seem to be having.
No, but I gave the example that some moved to another village close by, and it's accidentally in another municipality. But most municipalities are nowadays also quite big. So they could be 50 kilometers this way and 30 or 25 that way, for example. In if you look at land,
It's just to make sure that Ian gets the chance to ask his question. Ian, do you want to turn on your mic?
I'm just going
Hiya. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Hello. Really interesting. Sorry if I missed it, but I wondered if there was a class element to this, whether or not that you looked at different people's classes and how that affected it.
Yeah, we only did that via education.
Which would kind of sort of denote that was like a middle class
We didn't
characteristic.
How would you measure it? Because we don't have this classical class thing in the Netherlands to how to measure it, I think. We would do that via education. Yeah.
Or any other wealth indicator that might be.
Income, for example. We didn't include income. I don't think we have it, but I'm not sure.
And that would also interact with housing, I suppose, is what people could afford versus the housing that's available.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know.
It could also be education of parents, but
I know in the UK we have the ACON geodemographic classification, but that might be, I don't know if in the Netherlands you'd have
it's getting warm here, or I'm
it's
having
warm.
my internal,
Feel free to open the door. We're a bit squeezed.
Is there anything else online that has a question, just so we don't miss anybody out? I'll come in with a question too. Okay. I was noticing that there's a Rod. I'll say it and then I'll let Rod. The stairs, that they were working kind of healthcare.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting because it's obviously a job that you can do in that place.
Yeah.
But it's whether they chose to do it for that reason. Why did they? Could they stay?
Yeah, what was
what was the motivation? Was it to do a career in healthcare so they could stay, or was it because they could stay because they've done a career?
Yeah, we don't know that, and that would be an interesting from the qualitative.
I also wondered about the mental health of different groups of your different clusters. If there's any kind of measure of their mental health, and whether that makes an impact on.
Yeah, we don't. That's not in the microdata, so we don't know that.
Yeah.
But well, for example, we know also from other projects we know that these repeat leavers, they come back sometimes also because of mental health issues. They go back home because they left the parental home, it didn't work out, or they got unhappy or something. They move back to the safe family network and the places that they know, and then a while later, once they have everything sorted out, they move again. So I know it's in there, but yeah.
I want to ask you about this amazing microdata because it seems fantastic.
Yeah, I'm also so.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to analyze, so you need these quantitative economic geographer colors
Right.
to help you do this.
Rhodes has got a question online.
Oh, hey. Well, you may have covered this already, but I think I was thinking about my own situation. But the question is, to what extent can this be linked to employment status, like at various points in time? So, basically, if people are unemployed, is that a reason why they're going back to rural areas to live with their parents?
Very good question. We also did not include employment, so that's one thing that needs to be done, taken up in the further research. I didn't mention it, but you're right. So thanks.
So where does the microdata come from? How are you able to
It's the municipality administration, so we know where everyone lives and all kind of other information. And the Netherlands Statistics, they just collect it, or they have it somewhere. But they only started doing this only a couple of years ago, so we can only have that from the period since then. Yeah, so from us, it's not. For me, it's my age group, for example, cohort. It's not until as far back as when I was born.
Right.
Yeah, so you can only analyze. But we also, of course, this sample is the ones that were born halfway the 80s and grew up in the 90s. So it could be that our current rural young adults will have a different trajectory later on, because you don't know how that. So that's also one of the things.
So this was just people up to the age of 35.
Yeah, so they were 35 and 36 and 37 in 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 1 year ago, I don't know. Yeah, so that's why we could only take that cohorts 84 to 87.
Is there any sense that older people have similar or different patterns from other research, or is that still?
Well, I think I don't know.
Yeah.
I expect at least closer to now. So young adults. We see that they now stay at home longer. They leave the parental homes later for all kind of reasons, mostly also related to housing sometimes, because even if you want to go to university, it's completely impossible to find a room in the city. But it also seems to be a little bit more that I think all that. But you're an anthropologist, right? So I don't know if you're interested in, if you're into. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But I think with us having longer life expectancies, I also think that the periods, the different, so you have being a child, being a young adult, becoming an upper adult or whatever, and then retire aging, all these life stages, I think have become a bit longer, otherwise we cannot. Yeah. So I think that's also, they're a bit slower, the young adults now, compared to before.
I also wonder if it's something to do with different kinds of upbringings in the rural.
Yeah.
Because, there are definitely people, I live out in Afford, which is West Aberdeenshire, and for example, the local woodland, which is a real community resource, it's community owned.
Yeah.
And there are people who just commute in and out of Aberdeen to work. They've never set foot in the local woodland, for example.
Yeah.
Not that that's any kind of measure of how rural your lifestyle is, but I think there are people who just have different reasons for living rurally, whereas others might be more interested in countryside walks, gardening, nature.
Yeah, I think the ones that are interested in that, no, that's not true.
Or if it somehow rubs off,
but I disagree with myself.
maybe that somehow gets more embedded in the kind of the upbringing of the children. And I think I'm a parent of teenagers, and I think that's probably what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
That it has rubbed off, and but that's a sort of personal bias, I suppose.
Yeah.
Rootedness is really interesting as well, how long your family has been in the area.
Yeah, so we really have to include the residential history of the parents, I think.
I think we've got another meeting coming in here.
It's okay.
Is it you? All right, okay.
But yes, but we should. It is 11 o'clock now, so
we should start wrapping up.
That's so
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for really interesting questions. It's just been so relevant to what we do here.
But it's also interesting because we all have our own residential, history, and we also have our children, indeed, and our parents that have, and how. So it's also, I also think it's so interesting because of it also links to your own life. Yeah.
I think also it was great to hear the introduction to your department and to learn about where collaboration.
So now you know. We can
You're very welcome.